And we're Wild Stallions! No, dude! Let's bail!
If you've ever watched any summer blockbuster, say the latest Marvel film or disaster movie, then you've seen some version of the 3-act structure at work. This is one of the most common and successful storytelling tools developed in the last 1,000 years. So what is the 3-act structure? This is a standard plot structure that dates all the way back to Greek philosopher Aristotle. You know this guy.
Tidor, tes clepsydras, hypeu, hemon, hemerai.
Oh, sorry, wrong Greek philosopher, that was
Socrates.
Aristotle describes stories as having a cause and effect chain of events that lead from an initial conflict to an escalation and ending with a resolution. And this is still essentially how most stories, even summer blockbusters, work. Moreover, we can separate this chain of events into 3 acts, where each section has a specific purpose. Now let's go through each of these acts, define the story beats, and look at some examples. Starting with Act 1, the setup. The beginning of the story, the setup, gives your reader a sense of who your characters are and what their everyday lives are like. During the setup, the author will establish stakes, what the character has to lose, and hint at the conflict. The first act contains 3 plot points: the hook, the inciting incident, and the first turning point. Our story begins with the hook, a moment that grabs the audience and pulls them into the story. The hook is usually a moment of intense action, humor, or drama at the heart of the story. Then we have inciting incident. An inciting incident is a plot point that completely disrupts the protagonist's life and forces them to develop a goal and take action, usually to return to how their lives were before this event.
Whoa!
Greetings, my excellent friend.
Do you know when the Mongols ruled China?
Perhaps we could ask them.
Act 1 ends with Turning Point 1. Turning Point 1 is when the characters decide to take action. They may be reluctant, frightened, or unprepared, but the inciting event has forced them to act. The first plot point is a break from your character's status quo, propelling the hero into the story's action. Act 2, the confrontation. Act 2 is where the action of the story gets going. After establishing the character's everyday life, the author will disrupt that everyday life somehow. The confrontation contains the rising action, mid-plot climax, and the second turning point. The rising action is a chain of cause and effect events in your story's second act. These events gradually raise the tension as your character must take increasingly desperate measures to resolve their conflict until they hit the climactic midpoint. I did an entire video on rising action, which we'll link in the comments below. The mid-plot climax is a crucial moment for your character. This moment could come from a plot twist, sudden revelation, or a catastrophic failure. At the midpoint, the hero will usually suffer a major loss, but from that loss, gain something truly valuable. Act 2 ends with the second turning point. In the aftermath of the mid-plot climax, the character will need to recommit to their journey. This may come after a bit of soul-searching as the pace of the story slows. Your character will emerge the second turning point by committing to their journey and preparing for their third act, confrontation. We have arrived at Act 3, the resolution. Here, the author wraps up the story as the character resolves their conflict. The resolution can be either positive or negative, but the character will experience some pivotal event. They may have to grow as a person or learn a lesson to overcome their conflict. Act 3 consists of 2 major story beats: the final climax, which takes up most of the third act, and the denouement, which ties up any loose ends. The climax is the highest point of tension in your story. It is also the third turning point. This beat is when your hero faces off against their primary antagonist. This is a battle, if not literally, then figuratively. The story's central question is answered during the climax. Denouement is a fancy French word that means to untie, I think. But in writing a denouement means tying up all the loose ends and answering any lingering questions after the conflict is resolved. A denouement shows the audience where characters end up after the resolution. So that's the 3-act structure, but that's not the only plot structure out there. Check out one of these other videos we've done on plot, which should be floating around my head here somewhere. Alright, that concludes today's video. If you learned anything or you found this to be interesting, please give us a like and subscribe, and we will talk soon. Alright, bye. Okay, I should be done now. Oh God.